Okay, let's take a look at Assemblies. Within Assemblies, adding a component is something we do all the time, so no surprise, that's where we're going to start. Some improvements in the Insert Component dialog. First of all is the configuration dropdown now includes configuration description as well as just configuration name. For long lists which all just had part numbers, this is now much easier to read. We've also had some improvements in the fix and float options. This means that we can choose to use the tick box to add something at the origin, but still have it floating rather than having to go and unfix it every single time. So I'm going to grab this knuckle, rotate it around, and I'm going to mate it in a couple of different ways. Again, mating is something we've had for years. Here I'm using the Alt and drag technique in order to be able to add that concentric. And then I can use a Control Select on two faces and use the fly out in order to add that second concentric. Nothing new there. However, within the width mate, there have been some changes. First of all, it used to say width and tab, and now says width 1, width 2. And for, say, centered mates, this didn't really matter. But for free mates, you had to select the width first and the tab second. So here I'm going to select this in deliberately the wrong order. And historically this wouldn't have worked, it would have moaned. But now, as you can see, it's solving quite happily. I'm just going to switch that back to a centered, and then we'll hit the tick. I'm just going to rotate around to the back, and I'm just going to change display state to turn some fasteners on. And I'm going to grab this bushing and use Control Drag to create a copy of it. We'll zoom in, and I'm going to be using the mate references on this bushing. So if I drag it, you can see as I drag it over, SOLIDWORKS is trying to solve the mates and give me a set of mate references that add up, which is great. But if I fix this knuckle temporarily, you can see I can grab hold of this part and the rotation hasn't been locked. So there's going to be an extra step that I have to jump through. We have improved mate references this year. So I'm going to select this part and we're going to have a quick look at its mate references. Now the first thing we can see is that it's got this tick box, create mates only when names match. Now previously SOLIDWORKS would take account of matching mate reference names, but now we can force it to use those. And we also have the option to lock rotation automatically. So I'm going to grab this part and Control Drag it over here, and you can see it snapped into place, but it's also giving me a little flyout with the other locations which would be valid based on name. So I can keep dragging my part back to the same location and using the flyout to actually throw it to the relevant holes. So this can save quite a bit of time if you're on a big model, rather than having to go and find all those holes if the mate references already exist. So I'm just going to collapse the tree, and then I'm going to do a bit of housekeeping and drag these two items to the bottom. Now I want to add component references to these articulation pivots. Now historically I'd have had to select each part, click on properties, go to the component reference and type it in, and that's a bit time consuming. So this year in 2024 we can now edit component references en masse. So if I scroll down to the bottom, we'll see that front, and I can copy it and I can paste it to the 5 front ones, and then I can type in rear and paste that to the 5 rear ones. The warning symbol I'm getting here is just because I've used a duplicate component reference. And these component references can appear on balloons or in bills of materials on my drawing. So they're just really handy as a way of separating out similar parts in different locations. Now, earlier on, Matt talked about sharing things with a link. Now, often when you want to share data, you want to simplify it. Now, we've had Silhouette Simplify before, but now we can use rules to define how things are going to be simplified automatically for us. So in this case, I've got a custom property called IP level, and depending on the IP level, we're going to change what we're going to do to the file to simplify it. We can add more rules, and there are loads of different categories the rules can be under. So there's going to be some way of simplifying the model the way you need it to be simplified. So I'm going to apply that set of D feature, and effectively it's looking at that custom property IP level and then choosing how much simplification to be done based on that. So we might have something where we have a patent or it's a standard item, in which case we can show it off to the world, or there might be something which is really secret squirrel and hush hush, in which case we're just going to turn that into a solid lump so people can't really see what we're doing within it. So there's our simplified model. Spin that round and you can see the preview of the simplified version. On the next page you can see we can still do groups as before, but something new is we can propagate visual properties across. which was asked for by a number of different users. And as before, I can save this as a new document or as a new configuration. If I go to File, Save As, exactly as Alex said earlier, we can now save assemblies back to the older versions, but in his excitement to talk about older versions, he did forget to talk about the extended reality options. So you can see slightly lower down the list, GLTF and GLB. We have been able to save for virtual reality in the past, but we had to have a separate add-in loaded to do it, and now they're just included on the standard file types list. So I'm now going to just have a look at a step file. New in 2024, we've got this enable filter tick box. And this is mostly there because when you get sent a large assembly as a step file, it has to import everything. Now, by enabling this filter, I can actually see all of the parts that are included in that step assembly, and I only want this one. So I can just tick one file. I can choose to generate a 3D preview to check I've selected the right file. And I don't have to worry about importing the whole assembly. So that does look like the right one. Choose import, and that's going to import that single component, not the whole assembly. Now, if you're being sent big assemblies by suppliers or by customers, this can massively reduce the load time because we're only actually looking out the one part rather than the whole assembly. I'm going to come back and open the rear wheel. And once this finishes loading, it's going to moan at me and tell me there's an error. Okay, if we go into the part, we can see that's the problem with the circular pattern. If I edit that, we can see it's missing its direction reference. That's been deleted somehow. Now I can right click on this and choose auto repair. And basically SOLIDWORKS is going to go and find something that fits the bill. There we go, we've been told it's been successfully fixed, and I can do a control Q and the error message goes away. This is an extension of the auto mate repair that we saw last year.